Well, I think she'll perform very well in New Jersey. You know, she's already over the top and is the presumptive nominee of the party at this point. But they want today to be a big voter turnout day because that news came a little bit earlier than thought, and tonight was going to be the big party. I think it still will be. And I think it's interesting to reflect that 8 years ago to the day, today, that Hillary Clinton pulled out of her presidential primary campaign and gave it to President Obama, who is ahead in the pledged delegate votes. And here we are today, 8 years later. Hillary Clinton is ahead of the pledged delegates votes. She's ahead by the superdelegate vote. She's ahead by the popular vote in the country. So I don't think Bernie will call it quits today. He's giving a lot of indications that he will not, but it is just mathematically insurmountable for him to get the nomination. And your wonderful reporter was just giving a very good analysis about these super delegates, these delegates that for the last 30 years, this is nothing new at all. Super delegates are members of the Democratic Party that have the opportunity to vote for a candidate. Now, those super delegates are past U.S. presidents. They are leadership of the Democratic National Committee.
All right.
But I will tell you this, Mies Tianwei, they have never, ever, ever decided the fate of an election. The superdelegates have gone with whoever won the most pledged delegates of the people.
Okay.
So right now with Mr. Sanders wanting to flip that around, that goes against everything he believes in and anything that has ever happened before. I see Hillary Clinton coming out as the winner.
I can feel a lot of enthusiasm coming from you, Ms. Schwartz, when talking about the votes of the voters vis-a-vis the superdelegates. We talk about superdelegates. Hillary Clinton has already obtained the prerequisite number of delegates needed to clinch the Democratic nomination for president. But Bernie Sanders, as you said, is vowing to continue his fight for the nomination. His argument is that much of Clinton's lead is based on the support of superdelegates who will not actually vote until the convention of the party. According to CNN, Clinton has already secured 1,812 pledged delegates and 572 superdelegates for a total of 2,384 delegates. What's a lot of math going on over there? One more than needed for the nomination. Sanders, on the other hand, has secured 1,521 pledged delegates, only 47 super delegates. As you explained, the superdelegate is a delegate to the Democratic National Convention who can choose their selection for the voting rather than the results of their state determining their vote. A superdelegate could potentially swing the votes to nominate a presidential candidate who did not receive the majority of the votes during the primary. That's, of course, a very interesting complications of the American politics. Having said that, though, Ms. Schwartz, these polls, of course, could be quite reliable, as we have already seen similar results coming from various polls indicating the same direction. And yet, Ms. Schwartz, this is what I want to ask you. You're an expert. What would these polls have on the voters' actions? Well, voters saw almost similar results coming from every poll. Would they be still geared up to go to the polls and vote for their party's nomination?
Well, I think there are a couple of things at play. If Bernie Sanders continues with the argument that the superdelegates should decide the nominee of this party, I think a lot of people will stay home in November on the actual election day. Because again, as I mentioned, that's never happened before, that the superdelegates have overturned the will of the pledged delegates and the popular vote. Now, in the polls, you have got to make a great effort on both sides of the aisle from the same party after a primary concludes. Hillary Clinton, as tough as it was for her to do after working so hard, put all of her weight and support behind President Obama, then Senator Obama.
Well,
she did everything to get
let's talk about this election rather than the last election. Even though she's a comrade Lei Feng, you could even term that, with using a Chinese terminology, by the way. Well, she has to fight her way this time because nobody is going to use her achievement last time in order to prove that she is the candidate this time. So let me ask you very briefly. Will that influence the action of the voters? Let's just say for the other 6 states who are supposed to have the eventual numbers out very soon? That's first question. Second question is, what will happen? Mr. Sanders, 70% of the superdelegates he has to achieve in order to turn the pictures around. Is that likely to happen? 2 questions, please, direct answers.
Yep. Number one, the numbers never should have come out tonight because both Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders want huge turnouts today in all of those 6 states. They are urging them as of last night through today. I urge them, get out and vote. Bring a sister, bring a brother, bring a family member, because your vote still counts. You know, we want to show in the Democratic Party that there is a margin of enthusiasm, that people believe it's important to vote. So that is very important for today, no matter what the delegate count is then. Afterwards, Bernie Sanders has to go. He said already he's going to take a break, go to Vermont. He needs to decide what he's going to do. He needs to decide and realize that the differences between a Donald Trump administration and a Hillary Clinton administration are far more greater than any differences between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders.
Well, he would also love to imagine it could be a Sanders administration vis-a-vis a Donald Trump administration. Let me go to you, Mr. Andrews. The Republican Party is very interesting as well. Party unity, is it really there, or it is really just verbally out there?
Well, the reality is that Donald Trump had an incredible opportunity to unite the party in advance of the party convention in July. Of course, I think many people know that the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, came out and endorsed Mr. Trump along with other quote-unquote establishment members of the party. However, Mr. Trump made a racist statement last week about a judge in Indiana of Hispanic heritage, and that I think has caused a really significant rift in the party, and I think you're going to see a lot of, again, more establishment Republicans that already hold federal office not only shy away from Donald Trump, but perhaps even go back on their previous endorsement of him. He cannot continue to make these types of statements. It's not what the Republican Party stands for. And unfortunately, Donald Trump is, of course, his own person, and he's going to say what he wants to say. However, these blows are very significant. And when you want to talk about party unity, it's impossible if Donald Trump continues on this course.
But Mr. Andrews, you could see that Mr. Donald Trump, at this moment at least, is not in any way apologetic about his earlier statements. About when it comes to races and also other nationalities, immigrants as well. You see people, establishment so-called, try to distance themselves rather, even under the banner of party unity at this moment. Paul Ryan, for example, he has to come up with his own terminology and also way of portraying his opinions now when it comes to states elections. You also have Mitch McConnell, who at the very beginning was standing with Donald Trump. Now he's trying to distance himself even a little bit more. And also Marco Rubio as well. He pledged to support Donald Trump party unity, but it seems it's a different thing between words and action. So with a quote-unquote united Republican Party, at least for the moment, what would that mean for the chances that Donald Trump vis-a-vis whoever is the candidate coming from the Democrat Party?
Well, I think if Donald Trump continues to create issues for Republicans that are running down the ballot, so for state office, for other federal offices during the 2016 election cycle, in terms of getting more support, it's going to be very difficult. I think today you spoke about the primary out in California. However, there's primaries happening in 6 states, including North Carolina, where Renee Elmers, who's actually the first member of Congress that Donald Trump has endorsed, he actually did a robocall for her just a couple of days ago. And actually Bernie Sanders has a supporter that's running for Congress in New Jersey. If Donald Trump can prove that he can continue on his current course and support candidates and ensure that candidates win, then he's going to have an opportunity to just practically speaking, keep the party united because people are going to be able to win. However, if polls show that Republican candidates down the ballot aren't able to win because of these incredibly racist and derogatory statements that Donald Trump is making, then no, the unity won't be there, and his chances of winning in November, the chances of the party keeping Congress, the chances of the party moving forward in November are going to be fairly grave.
We're going to let both of you, coming from very different party backgrounds, commenting about each other's situation a little bit later. For now, let me come to you, Mr. Ye, here in Beijing. You listened to the other two wonderful panelists' comments, and certainly they are following the party line, but at the same time, very realistically helping us to understand the very complicated American politics. So, Mr. Ye, what do you make of this? Is this a very unique phenomenon this time? It's more personality rather than anything this time.
It's not only the phenomenon, it's also changed the theory of the political science. You know, usually when
you think so?
The party election, the theory about the party election basically means if you have the multiple candidates, more than two, and the candidate has to pick up his different policy approach to attract the guy who has a strong approach to her or his policy. That means you have to be different. So you get your own people and stand for you. But if there's only two candidates in the two-party system, you have to go into the between, because no matter what's your stance, your people will always stand for you, and your job is to try to get the people from the between, and then you will win. But Donald Trump, they changed everything because he now already in the two-party campaign, but he will still hold a very strong approach on and a strong personality. I think the unity of the party, especially for the Republicans, is very important. But for Donald Trump, I think he still will prefer his strong personality.
This is also a choice between one who is extremely experienced in international relations, Secretary Clinton, of course, is the one that we're talking about, and the other is not necessarily in any way being close to politics, but rather a pop star almost in a way, plus businessman. So what do you make of these choices? What would that mean for people outside the United States, even though we don't vote, but still we could have an opinion?
I think firstly, Americans alike may prefer Hillary Clinton because she won't change this policy principle as a policy fundamentally, but Donald Trump will open a new gate for the whole world because Donald Trump really noticed that the long-term American foreign policy approach has a very essential problem.
Very interesting. Well, you are putting a lot of sensible logics behind Mr. Trump's argument. We'll see whether that's really the case or not. Let me come back to you.
And then again, there's Donald Trump who wants to give nuclear weapons to other rogue nations, and that really is not sound foreign policy.